The morning the patrol cars slid onto Juniper Bend, I was still in flannel pajama pants and an old college hoodie, coffee halfway to my mouth, mind soft with sleep, and the promise of a quiet Saturday. By the time the first door slammed and the radios started crackling, every sparrow in the elm out front had taken off like confetti from a cannon, and my stomach had that cold elevator drop feeling I hadn't felt since the night I signed discharge papers at the hospital. Two officers stepped onto my porch with that careful, measured gait people use when they expect trouble, and behind them came the queen of our homeowners association, in a blazer the color of wet concrete, chin-high, smile-sharp binder tucked like a shield under her arm. "Officers," she announced as if she were emceeing the county fair, "this is the address, the one with the unregistered dangerous animal." She didn't look at me when she said it. She looked at my house, at my windows, at the life I'd been trying to rebuild in Birch Hollow, ever since the world caved in 3 years ago. "My name's Elias Grant. I moved here for the silence, for the decent schools for my daughter, for the baking heat that settles over the street at 3 in the afternoon and reminds you to breathe slower and forgive more. I didn't move here for Marla Sutton." "Sir," the taller officer said, polite professional, resting a hand on his duty belt. "We've had multiple complaints of a large aggressive dog on your property. Do you consent to a quick look around?" I blinked at him, then past him at Marla, then down at my coffee like maybe the steam would write a sensible answer in the air. "I don't own a dog," I said, trying to find the humor before the anger found me. "I don't even own a fish I can't keep alive a month, and now I'm harboring a beast," Marla cut in, crisp as a paper cut. We all heard it, Elias, barking at all hours, terrifying the neighbors, and per Section 6, Paragraph 3. No animal over 20 pounds may be kept without prior authorization. The board will not be intimidated by scofflaws. I almost laughed at scofflaws. Then I saw the HOA's attorney, a compact man whose suit looked like it drove itself to court, step up with a folder and a throat clearing big enough for television. The officers did their job, and to their credit, they were patient and even a little amused. I told them to go ahead, knock themselves out, open every gate, peer under the deck, tap on the shed, where my lawnmower sleeps like a dragon, hoarding plastic gas cans. They walked, they crouched, they swept their lights through the chilly morning shade. Nothing. The only thing moving was a curtain across the street where Mr. Patel watches morning news, until the ads make him grumpy. Then it happened, sharp, metallic bouncing off fences and brick, the way sound does when the air is just cold enough to carry it bark bark. It made my scalp tingle, not because it sounded mean, because it sounded wrong, like someone recorded a dog and played it back through an old tin lunchbox. The officers froze. Marla lit up with triumph, like she'd just been handed a gift-wrapped confession, and the lawyer scribbled as if the ink itself were billable. From the yard, Marla breathed. "From not my yard," I said, but my voice had gone soft, because truthfully, it did sound like it came from behind my fence. The officers pushed through the gate, the beam of the taller one's flashlight cutting the mist still sitting low along the grass, and I felt the old ache behind my ribs that shows up when life gets loud in a way I didn't ask for. They looked again. They looked under the deck where cobwebs were practicing their own urban planning, and they found exactly what I had: nothing. By dusk, there was a yellow slip on my door for $200, unauthorized animal, that word unauthorized, doing all the work of painting me as reckless when I could barely remember to replace the HVAC filter on time. By Monday, there were flyers taped to mailboxes and the stop sign that kids love to kick on their way to the bus: "Protect Birch Hollow. Remove the dangerous dog" at 1187 Juniper Bend, and my daughter Sophie came home with her eyes red and her backpack hanging off one shoulder, like the day had peeled the strength right off her. "Dad," she said, voice wobbling. "People asked if we're training a guard dog, and I said we don't have a dog." And they laughed. I promised her I'd fix it, the kind of promise you make before you know how it can possibly be true. The HOA meeting drew the biggest crowd I'd seen in our community room since the holiday potluck, where the deviled eggs fought everyone's arteries and won. Folding chairs, bad fluorescent lighting, sweating water pitchers, the flag in the corner, drooping like it had also read the agenda and wanted to leave. At the front table next to a stack of bylaws as thick as a church hymnal sat Harold Kim, our board president, who carries permanent exhaustion like it's part of the uniform. Marla stood when my item came up and gave a speech about order and safety and the sanctity of rules that would have impressed a parade marshal. Then her attorney tapped a little speaker, and the room filled with that same tinny bark, and people turned to look at me like a magician who's lost the rabbit. Before I could open my mouth, the bark echoed again from outside, loud and brighter, as if the speaker had sprouted wings. Chairs scraped, people rose, and we spilled through the doors into the parking lot, where the air had a sweet, hot smell of summer asphalt. Up there, someone said, and we craned our necks as one, and on the power line sat a crow, midnight slick eyes like beads, beak open. Bark, bark, bark. The silence afterward was the kind that holds a laugh hostage, then the laugh broke free. The cops who had wandered over from the lobby tried very hard to pretend they weren't smiling, and Harold pinched the bridge of his nose like he could squeeze the absurdity out of the evening and into a napkin. I wish that had been the end, a neat bow tied by a ridiculous bird with a talent for mimicry. But if there's one thing grief taught me and Birch Hollow reminded me, it's that some people would rather wrestle the truth than hold it. Another notice on my door: unauthorized wildlife disturbance 300, because apparently I now controlled the skies. I went to the HOA office and spoke to a secretary who looked like she had seen everything and liked exactly none of it. And she told me with sympathy that lived nowhere near her voice to bring evidence to the next meeting if I wanted the board to do anything. So I bought a porch camera, and every morning at 7, the crow came back, sat on the line, barked like a dog with a megaphone, threw in a doorbell chime for variety, and on the best of the bad days mimicked a car alarm so perfectly I apologized to my neighbors with a tray of brownies that did not fix things, but did buy me some grace. The second meeting was a movie lights low projector, humming my footage, filling the screen in crisp detail, the crow opening its beak and letting loose a bark while perched on Marla's very own mailbox. The laughter that time didn't even try to be polite. Half a beat later, the city's animal control officer, a man named Ruben Delgado with a mustache, you could rest a coffee cup on, walked in with a clipboard and a photo of the same crow on a stop sign that said, "In its own bird way, we see you." He mentioned the complaints had all come from one resident, and he looked at Marla with the particular patience of a public servant who knows exactly which department does not handle crows. By then, the video had a title online: Bark Battalion versus the HOA, and my phone buzzed until I learned how to set it face down and breathe while the internet did what it always does. A flock showed up 3 nights later, not one crow, but 5, then 7, then a dozen, perched along the wires like notes on a staff. And when they barked together, it was so ridiculous, so joyful.